Hello YouTubes, and welcome to another edition of The Casual Word. I'm your host Langley, and today we're coming to you from Virginia Middle School here in Bristol, Virginia. As many of you know, this is where I work, but today we're very excited and very blessed to have Peyton Epperson here on the show, and not only here on the show, but here at the school speaking to the youth about the benefits of writing, being creative, making better decisions, using something constructive versus destructive behaviors, fighting and whatnot. She's a very, very powerful voice in the community. 16 years old, it's remarkable the insight and the level of wisdom that she has for her age. She's just recently published The Hanging Heart, and we've got a copy of it here. This is a wonderful book. And how many pieces were in this one? 21? Mm-hmm. 21 pieces, so it's a short read, but I encourage everyone to get a copy of this book. It's not only powerful from an emotional standpoint, but it's powerful from a spiritual standpoint. She's a very, very rooted believer, and I think that's something that makes her writing even more powerful and even more profound, again, for her age. So, Peyton, pleasure to have you on the show. I'm so happy you were able to be here. So happy that you were able to be here and speak to the kids. We've had a lot of great questions, a lot of interest, and we really hope that we'll be able to ignite the fire of having the kids do something that's much more positive in terms of expressing their emotions. But let's talk briefly about you, your life. Being 16 years old, and we kind of touched on this, and many of you all you've seen it. It's been a while, but I was able to come and speak to their youth group, which is how I actually met Peyton, and we started talking about her writing and the potential that she had. And we talked about the fact that at your age especially, young teens, early teens, that what you're doing in terms of your foundation and your faith and your belief system and being rooted in that is not always going to be popular.
Right.
It's not always going to be what the kids will receive or even want to be around you, for that matter. When I was in school, middle school, high school, there were people who were very deeply rooted. I don't profess to be one of those people at all. I had a faith system. I had a good foundation, a good nucleus in terms of a home, but it wasn't something that we kind of practiced, in school or out in public. It was kind of a very private thing. We went to church and we prayed together as a family, but it wasn't something that we really went out and professed. Mm-hmm. So, how do you cope with that in terms of growing as a young adult, growing in your walk, growing in your ministry, the book, all the things that are coming at you at one time?
Right. I think being a Christian is a way of coping in itself, obviously, because you have something higher than yourself to look for. But it ties in with writing, because writing is also my coping mechanism, and it's a 10 times better alternative than going out and fighting someone that's hurt you. It's a lot better to just pour it all out onto a piece of paper. But a lot of times my spirituality ties into that, because, some of the stuff is about God in here. Not all of it, because I realize that's not everybody's thing, but it's my thing. So I make sure to put it in there, because, like I said, both sides come in together, because if I didn't have one, I wouldn't have the other. So I think the journey that I've kind of been on that led me to publishing the book was super important, because if I wasn't a rooted Christian, first of all, I wouldn't have the opportunity at all, but also I wouldn't have the kind of inspiration, the kind of insights that I had, because I think being a Christian gives you a whole different outlook on a lot of the stuff that I've been writing. So a lot of this is really sad stuff, but a lot of it turns into the purpose from it and what it turned into, because I believe in God and because I am a Christian. So.
Yeah, and that really strikes a chord with myself and a lot of people. Is when you have that foundation and you have that belief system, like you said, you've got something that's going to be higher than yourself to look forward to, and you also have that thing that's higher than yourself, which allows you to not only practice your faith, but practice your humanity in a way that allows you to help and heal and help other people cope and heal as well. So the book itself, we'll go ahead and touch on that. Again, it's called The Hanging Heart. Fabulous book. I can't say enough about her talent and her ability. The idea and the concept, let's talk about that for a minute. Where did that come from? How did you go about creating the title, the idea, the collections of poems that you decided to put into this book?
Okay. Well, I guess we can start with the cover. It's and I was actually really excited to hear one of the kids ask, why did I pick an organ heart instead of just, the cartoon heart that everybody's used to seeing. And the cover work, I did it, and it is an organ heart, and it's tied up with a red thread. And the reason that I picked that, it just looks kind of sad, but there's a message behind it, and it's that if you tie a real organ heart up with a red string, it's very vulnerable. The string can break, the heart will bust, it's just not going to be good. So that's the reason that I put that, because a lot of the stuff in here are very vulnerable feelings. They're very private, they're very personal things. So I think the cover kind of ties in with all the things that are inside of them. And a lot of times you ask about my writing process, and I don't really have one, because normally I can't sit down and plan out what I'm going to do and plan the revision and the editing. It just kind of, whatever comes out, and it's all my feelings, and it's all real, and it's all truthful, and sometimes it's a little too truthful. And I was kind of actually a little bit scared of publishing a lot of this, because people are going to look at me differently. They're going to see how I deal with things. But a lot of this came from heartbreak, which is obviously inevitable, and it's just kind of my way of dealing with it, my way of making sense of what was happening, my way of making sense with all the feelings, because sometimes they are hard to deal with. But the whole book really is just a way of me, it's kind of like my stress relief,
Well, and you bring up a great point in being able to put your feelings down. And she touched on this in one of the classes earlier. Writing may not be your thing. It may be music. It may be sports. There's plenty of outlets that are nonviolent, that are constructive, that are positive, that you can use to really, stress relief, or, get your emotions out, or, myself as a writer, Peyton as a writer, this is just the outlet that we choose, is to say, okay, when I'm feeling a certain way, I'm just going to put it down on paper. Now, it may not be for the world. It may not be for anyone. I have friends who write, and I find it to be completely odd. However, it works for them, is that they'll write down their feelings, and it'll be a brilliant piece of poetry, and then they burn it. And for them, it is, you put the feeling down, you put the emotion down, you relieve yourself of it, but then the burning process kind of signifies that you've completely let it go, because now you can't even revisit those words. And I find it to be pretty interesting. Again, it's not something that I do. I really like going back over my work sometimes, and even if I don't decide to share it, it's always therapeutic. And it's always therapeutic to think about where you've come from. You touched on that before, but with some of your poetry, when you were going through the revision process, you said, you hadn't really looked back on these pieces until we started to put the book together. So what were your thoughts, as you go back over some of your older pieces?
Well, I think after you've written a lot, you grow a lot, you learn a lot. While you're always still you and you're still the same person, you grow and you become, aspects of you do become different because they're wiser and you've learned a lot more. But as I went back and kind of read some of these things that I kind of forgotten, not necessarily forgotten, but kind of tried to block out the bad things that have happened. I think everybody tries to do that. And I think because of that, when I did go back and read these, it was just kind of like a reminder of how upset and how hurt I was at one time. And it was a blessing and a curse. It was a good reminder to see like how far I've come, how I have overcome that. But it was also kind of sad because it was like, that's still real. The hurt is still there. It's still, you can push it down as far as you can, but it'll always kind of still be there, But I think going back and being able to see what I wrote in the past, it was a good thing. I think it helped to see, because even my writing while it's still kind of the same style, it's changed a little bit in the way my outlook has changed because of what I've learned. It's changed the way I look at things. So I think it helped to see how much has changed.
And I think you bring up another great point is, of course, we know we're more than conquerors, but to see not only the progression and the growth in your spiritual walk and in your natural walk as a young adult. Also, you made a great point about the hurt and the pain.
Right.
It's those things are going to exist. We talk about that. Those things are going to happen, and it's unavoidable, but it's not going to be bad. Right? All things work together for the good, then called according to His purpose. Right. So we know that though things will work together for your good, right? We can all understand that not everything is going to be good.
Right.
Sean and I touched on this in the last interview that he and I had, is that especially with his story, guys. If you haven't seen that, you need to go back and watch that. Powerful, powerful words. This man's testimony is absolutely phenomenal. But you're going to have to go through things. You're going to have to deal with things. The way that your faith is grown is that it is tested. And the way that you be able to become someone who can overcome is by growing your faith, by going through these trials and tribulations. So it's just amazing that she has this level of insight, this level of faith, this level of faith in terms of her foundation. You don't often meet individuals of her age that are as rooted and substantiated in her faith. She speaks to other youth groups. She speaks to a lot of kids, not only about the writing, but about her faith and her walk and her belief in our Lord and Savior. So, Peyton, it's been an absolute pleasure. Congratulations on your book, guys. We'll put a link to her book, The Hanging Heart, Peyton Epperson. Urge you to get a copy. We'll put that in the description. This is The Casual Word. I'm Langley. Till next time, stay blessed.